and if there are other needs that you have, I want to be able to meet those needs. So we have Ursula from Bethlehem, Pennsylvania. The political climate here is crazy, feeling overwhelmed. I'm so sorry, Ursula. So in a moment, we're going to do a practice to help you arrive and be able to calm your nervous system down. And in the meantime, one of the things that I would say to anyone who is here to learn how to manage overwhelm is that co-regulation. We had a co-regulation live maybe 3 months ago. And in that live, I was explaining that sometimes we need the support, right, of others for our nervous system to settle. We are actually wired for connection. So in order to stay regulated, we're going to need others. Sometimes, depending on your neurological makeup, you might find that like relationships can be overwhelming. For instance, I'm neurodivergent, and as a neurodivergent person, sensory input can really just be magnified for me. So sometimes relationships are not where I get co-regulated. I might get more co-regulated with animals or with nature, more so than with people. It depends on the people and the situation. So it's good to find ways, Ursula, and anyone else who's looking to navigate feelings of overwhelm, to find what is going to be helpful to you to stay co-regulated. Laurette, thank you for what you said for Ursula, and I'm sorry you're feeling that too. Paula has no sound. Everyone else, you are hearing me, correct? I just want to make sure that this is on Paula's end only. So Paula, you may want to look into your system on your computer and just check for the sound output and see if maybe it's going to some kind of other device. Sometimes when we use headphones and then we take off the headphones, the computer is not always tracking that we've changed device. So Kathy from Utah. Okay. So we're going to start. I'd love to hear in the chat why you're here. Like, why are you wanting to learn about the window of tolerance? And maybe what is your definition of the window of tolerance? Hello, Karen. So what brought you here? Why do you want to learn about the window of tolerance, and what is the window of tolerance to you? So Colleen is saying, I'm always in fight flight. So I'm sorry to hear that, Colleen, and I know exactly what you're talking about. I'm a trauma survivor, so I'm very familiar with that state that we can get in where we're in fight or flight. I was like that for many, many years. And only over the last, I would say, maybe 10 years have I really learned how to settle more. And over the last year, especially since I've been doing a lot of polyvagal theory work and learning about the nervous system, have I been able to really learn how to get out of that state by understanding it, right? So if we understand, by the way, just a side note for everyone, when we understand why our nervous system is in the state that it is in, instead of fighting it, right? So if we fight the nervous system, that state that we're in, then it's only going to lead to us being even more dysregulated, because we are in fight mode when we do that. If we flee, if we try to avoid it, it's the same thing. it never gets resolved. So the more we turn towards the state and we start to talk with the part of us that is getting activated or shut down, the more we can start to make progress. Because when we understand why we feel the way we feel and we don't get more dysregulated by feeling the way we feel, then we can come back into regulation. We can start to take steps towards resolving any situation that we're in. Okay, so Laurette is saying even procrastination is involved with overwhelm. Absolutely. And so let's briefly touch on that. So when we are in a state where our nervous system says, this is too much, I can't, I have to stop this, we will look at that as procrastination. We'll say, oh, I'm not doing what I'm supposed to do. When actually what happened is we came out of our window of tolerance and our nervous system said, nope, I don't have space for anything else. So then whatever else we felt in our minds we needed to be doing, we're not able to do. I hope that is helpful. Paula, okay, I hope you can come back. Rebooting, yeah, that's a great idea. Hi, Mark. Okay, Ariane, thank you so much. I hope I said your name right. Always feel overwhelmed because too much to do. So that's important to understand too, because if we are not managing our time and energy in alignment with where our nervous system is at, and we're not providing enough support and resources to our nervous system, and there's a lot going on in our lives, then we're going to feel overwhelmed. So we're going to address that too, Ariane, how you can resource yourself more and also really be very slowing down and being present with everything that you're doing, like one thing after the other, so that you don't get overwhelmed. Because what happens is when we have a lot to do and we're not in present time, we're projecting, okay, oh, there's this next and this next and this next. And it's like almost feeling like it's an endless list of to-dos. Then our nervous system is going to feel overwhelmed because it knows that it needs rest. It knows that it needs time to integrate and to heal. And so if we don't have that time and we don't make that time, then we're going to go into overwhelm as a way of our nervous system said, well, that's it, I'm not doing more. So it's kind of like giving us a cue and a clue as to where we're out of balance. So we come back into balance. So Sarah is saying, I need to navigate a period in my life where my aging mother has terminal illness and other heavy stresses. I'm so sorry to hear that, Sarah. That's really difficult. I just can't stop with the activation. I'm sleeping every day. Okay, I'm so sorry. And I really hope that the practices that we all do together today will be helpful, because they will teach you how to map your own nervous system, map where your window of tolerance is so that you can learn to be within that window, and also develop the language, the somatic language of your nervous system so you can track the early signs of dysregulation. And we're also going to address how to resource ourselves in a way that is most effective. So resourcing, if you were at a prior life, you might have learned about resourcing with me. And resourcing is a way of when we need extra support, finding things that bring us a sense of feeling open, feeling like we're not carrying the weight of the different tasks that we have to do or different stresses in our lives by ourselves. So the resourcing is a really important thing that helps us, as I was mentioning earlier on, to do more and also to be with things that are difficult, right? So expanding our window of tolerance is learning how to be with things that up until now our nervous system would get dysregulated by and not get dysregulated. So I hope this is helpful, Sarah. Isabel is saying she gets overwhelmed by situations and own emotions, plus when surrounded by people, I feel energy depleted. Okay. Thanks for sharing that, Isabel, because a couple of things. First of all, if we have associations with different situations, it can feel overwhelming. Also, we're going to develop today a language to be with our own emotions in the way that they don't overwhelm us. Because if any of you know about parts work, for instance, or IFS, internal family system, when we're merged with a part of us that is feeling a certain way, it's going to take us out of our window of tolerance. It's going to be overwhelming because now it's like this emotion and this part are all of us, right? We're no longer connected to the different parts of us, the different parts of our lives that are, more settled and calm and supportive. We're just completely enmeshed with the part and its emotions. So the first practice we're going to do in a moment, I'm going to stop the chat. I'm just going to read a couple more, and then we're going to do a landing practice. And then I wanted to add, Isabel, because that's really important, and I don't know if that's the case for other people here on this live, when we are empathic people, empaths, and we haven't learned a way to create separation, not as like we're not saying, I don't want to be close to this person, just separation between us and someone else's experience and someone else's emotions, then it's going to be a drain, because we're going to start to feel and process the emotions of other people around us, and that's going to take up also some of our capacity, right? So the window of tolerance, by the way, is the optimal range of your nervous system capacity, and it's unique to you. There's not one nervous system that's the same. There's not one person that has the same window of tolerance. We can have similarities, but nobody has, even two twins don't have the same experience as one another. And so we're unique, and our nervous system is unique. Laurette is saying, as the oldest child of 6 siblings, I was given too much responsibility. Now everything feels like overwhelm, of course. So that's another really important point that Laurette is making right now, which is the way that our nervous system develops and our capacity to be with difficulty or to be with challenges develops has to do with our childhood. And if we had parents who were aware of what a child within a certain age group has the capacity to do or not, then the parent would only give the child the opportunity to develop themselves within that the characteristics and the capacities in that age group. If there wasn't that awareness and there were unrealistic expectations, or there were needs that the parents were not able to have met with their community or with other family members, then they would start to rely on their children, especially the older siblings tend to be the ones who become responsible and even become parents to their siblings. So I'm a family constellation provider, and I've had several situations where I have seen how children, older siblings who have taken the role of mother or father to one of their siblings, how that then continues in later on in their lives to be something that is a burden for them, because now they have this sense of responsibility towards others that was ingrained, that was conditioned into them from an early age, And that's going to shift the way that they relate to others and how much energy it takes for them to basically take care of other people and also take care of their own selves and lives. And also they may, Laurette, you might relate to that, they may not be taking care of their own needs, because if they felt responsible or were made responsible for their younger siblings, then it's going to feel like, well, there's no space for me to meet my needs here, so I'm going to default to that, and then you don't have the resources. If you don't meet your own needs, then you are going to lack the resources that allow you to stay within your window of tolerance. Okay, so we're going to start. Ariane is saying, to overcome overwhelm pattern, do resource on the moment before or as a daily practice? So excellent question. So I'm going to answer this one, and then we're going to start with a practice. So to be able to resource yourself, you want to start to have a daily practice that is not happening in the moment, where something might take you into overwhelm, because you need to develop the neural pathway that then becomes in the moment where something starts to feel like you're about to get into overwhelm. Well, you now have a tool that you have practiced outside of overwhelm. When you're overwhelmed, you can forget about it, because it's like the prefrontal cortex shuts down, and now the nervous system says, nope, I can't do one more thing. So you can't practice something new in those moments. There's not actually the resources are not there in the nervous system and the brain for you to do that. So if you practice it daily, then the neural pathway will exist. And today, when we practice, you're going to start to see the early signs. And as you have a daily practice and you see the early signs of dysregulation starting to take you right outside of your window of tolerance into overwhelm, you can then have the practice come in as just a default, because you've done it so many times before outside of overwhelm. Okay, so let's start, and then I'll continue with looking at comments. I stopped at where did I stop? At Ariane. Okay. So if you just take a moment to arrive, and I know we're already 20 minutes in, that said, just like let yourself be in your chair. If you're in a chair or wherever you are, just arriving into the space. And feeling that you're yielding into support right now. So the support of the chair if you're on a chair, or the ground if you're on the ground. Also planting your feet on the ground and pressing down into the ground and allowing yourself to feel the energy that presses back up. And maybe your shoulders relax, they drop a little bit. Maybe you feel your chest open a little more. Feel the heaviness in your sit bones. And take a moment to notice also your breath. And notice any sensations in your body right now, with the intention of simply being with. You're not trying to change it. You're not trying to change your breath. You're not trying to change the sensations that you become aware of. So we're already doing some somatic tracking here, which is going to help us a lot to see that we stay regulated. And once you are aware of a sensation, it doesn't have to be a big one, just anything that you notice, name it. Part of overwhelm happens when we become so in the feeling of the overwhelm without naming what is happening in that moment that we can't find our way back to regulation. Because to our nervous system, it feels like there's a threat that's taking us into overwhelm, and we don't even know what it is. So there's no way to resolve it. When you name it, it actually allows the prefrontal cortex to come online and to start to say, that's why there's this sense of overwhelm right now. Okay, let me be with that. And the tools we're going to develop today will also help you be with that somatically, such that you're able to settle and calm down. And then the body, by settling and calming down through those somatic interventions, is going to send the signal to the brain, now everything is okay. We're okay. We have this to do and this to do. That's said not from a sense of overwhelm. And then, so this is the language that I was mentioning earlier on. Now that you name it, so let's say name, something that you're feeling right now. Instead of saying, let's say, I'm feeling anxious, or I'm feeling stressed, or I'm feeling jittery, or I'm feeling, overwhelmed. Instead of saying that, you're going to say something in me feels, and whatever it is that you're feeling. And I know this might seem like not very subtle. That said, by saying something in me, we're doing what I was mentioning earlier on. We're not merging. We're not blending with the part of us that is feeling what it feels. So we're able to create distance from the emotion while still being with the emotion. We're not suppressing. We're not pretending it's not there. We're just saying, this is not all of me. This is just one part of me. Something in me is feeling this. So now we're growing our awareness. And by the way, that is part of expanding your window of tolerance. Awareness is the foundation for the transformation that we want to happen. So when we develop awareness of what is happening inside of us and we name it, we're now expanding our window of tolerance, because we're not in the dark, kind of like this, not knowing what's happening, just feeling the overwhelm. We're like, something in me is feeling this. And then we turn towards it, right? The tendency is like, we feel overwhelmed. I don't want to feel overwhelmed. And then we get even more overwhelmed. So now we're turning towards it, and we're not judging it. We're not trying to change it. Every part of you, even the parts that get overwhelmed, they have good intentions. For instance, getting overwhelmed might be you're taking on too many responsibilities. You're not meeting your needs. You are doing too many things. You are not present when you have a lot to do. So, and many other reasons, right? So when we turn towards our dysregulation, our feeling of overwhelm, now we start to slowly settle, because when we turn towards it, first of all, we're bringing our prefrontal cortex online, and we're co-regulating with ourselves, by the way, when we're turning towards a part. So when our in IFS language or part language, when you say like something in me is feeling, it's the self in presence in you is noticing the other part that is feeling whatever it's feeling. And so it's not all of you. And so the self in presence is not co-regulating with the part that feels under-resourced or not supported, or like it doesn't have the capacity to face a certain challenge. And so it's helping that part see you can be with that, right? That's why earlier on I was mentioning co-regulation as a really important step to also expanding our window of tolerance. Because whether it's in the natural world or whether it's, people that we trust and we feel we can be with them when we are facing something difficult, it's teaching us, if another nervous system, the nervous system of nature, right? Everything has a nervous system, their own version of a nervous system. Animals have nervous systems. So it's like it's helping us when we are with that nervous system or the nervous system of another who is able to be with something that we haven't been able to be with in the past. And that's why we get overwhelmed. So we want to be around people who say, you can do this. I can be here with you as you do this. I can bring you support. I can help you find within yourself the capacity and the flexibility in your own nervous system to be with this challenge. Okay, so now we're going to talk a little more about, we're going to talk about 3 things, very short, about the window of tolerance, and then we're going to get into more practices because I think that's what's going to be most helpful. So there's 3 main zones in the window of tolerance. And of course, this is an oversimplification. There are many different nervous system states, many different what's called blended states. The 3 zones are just a way of giving a model as to whether we're regulated. So think about it, window of tolerance. This is the window of tolerance. The window of tolerance is where, so within that window, sorry, I can't share the graph, otherwise I would have. So within that window, we go up, we get sympathetically activated, and then we go back down. And so rest and digest, let's say. So you go into your sympathetic nervous system, you get activated. Oh, I went out of my window here. And then you go down into parasympathetic nervous system functioning. So that's normal. We're not just like in sympathetic activation, parasympathetic activation all the time. Sometimes we can get stuck in sympathetic activation, and that's because we have unresolved painful memories or traumas or things that are difficult that we haven't been able to deactivate, and we haven't been able to complete the stress loop for those different events, and therefore we stay, like the nervous system stays, we're still in high alert. There's still a threat. We haven't been able to stop the threat from potentially impacting us. So this is your window of tolerance. And then when you get more sympathetically activated into fight or flight, there you're here in what's called the hyperarousal state, right? So the state of overwhelm is an hyperarousal state. You're in fight or flight. Now, being overwhelmed can then take you the other way into hypoarousal. So if you think about the parasympathetic nervous system, which is usually rest and digest and connect, say we feel safe and we can socially engage. So this would be the ventral vagal branch of our nervous system. The other branch of the parasympathetic nervous system is what's called the dorsal vagal. And that is a more ancient branch of the nervous system. that we go into when we're overwhelmed. So we descend back into our evolutionary process as a species, into like how the reptilians, for instance, they don't have ventral vagal, right? They're not connected in that way, and so if there's a threat, they just shut down, right? They go under a rock. The turtle goes inside its shell, right? So it's like just get the stimulation out. So sometimes when you get to the high, hyperarousal, then your nervous system is like, I can't be with that, it's too much. So it goes down, and now it's below the window of tolerance into hypoarousal. And so someone was mentioning earlier on procrastination. That's what happens when there's too much overwhelm and the nervous system is saying, let's put the vagal brake on. Let's stop everything we're doing here. It's too much. I can't handle all of that. Then we go into hypoarousal, and we go into similar to like a state of hibernation, like I'm not doing anything. I just have to stop. Now, that doesn't mean we couldn't be still doing things physically in the world. It just means that the nervous system is not online to do those things in a way that keeps us calm, collected, resourced, restored. We're just, going to be using a lot of resources when we do that. Okay, so now you understand that the goal is to stay within that window of tolerance. Being hyper-aroused, going into fight or flight, is very costly energetically, physiologically, and being hyper-aroused is also costly energetically. Just because we go into a hibernating state doesn't mean that there's not arousal, right? So if we're hyper-aroused, it doesn't mean that we're not sympathetically activated at the same time. It's just like we shut down and we're going in preservation mode because we're already drained. We don't have enough resources. So the next thing that I want to briefly touch on is like what we're going to do in a moment, which is to learn the early signs of dysregulation. When you learn to know when you're approaching the top of your window of tolerance, or you're getting to the bottom of your window of tolerance, then you can start to apply one of the processes I'll teach you today to resource yourself, so that then you can come back down or come back up because, now I have some ventral vagal energy, which is like the safe and social engagement system. I feel safe, I'm stable, I'm steady, I'm calm, I have what I need, I have the support I need to navigate this situation, even if we're just giving ourselves that support. And so it's like when we learn the early signs, then we have choice. A lot of what overwhelm can feel like is like we don't have choice because we're dysregulated and we don't have a way back to regulation. So then the choice is taken away from us in that moment. So I'd like you to think quickly about a moment when you have faced something difficult in your life and you remain regulated. You remain within your window of tolerance. So just take a moment and think about a time when something like difficult happened, something that maybe could have taken you out of your window of tolerance, and yet you remain grounded, you remain calm, collected, and you were able to do what you needed to do in that moment to navigate the situation. So this is what we're doing right now. Me asking you that is you developing self-awareness. Oh, I've done this before. So your nervous system is like, and your brain are like, oh, we know how to do this. There's already a neural pathway that exists that allows us to do that. Where when things are difficult, we can still be with it. and not get dysregulated. So then ask yourself, like, what was it that helped me to stay within that window of my window of tolerance? And I would love here to hear any comment that you have about that. So what was it that allowed you to remain regulated? And if you don't remember being able to do that, that's okay. When you surrender to the situation, beautiful, Ariane. So when something, so the amount of energy required to say, no, this shouldn't be happening, I don't want this, and judging it and feeling maybe even victimized by a situation that happens in our life. Not that it's wrong to feel victimized by something. That said, if we say no to what's happening in any moment, and we're not surrendering, it takes a lot of energy to do that. When we surrender, now we're being with. Now we can see the situation as it is, and we can start to understand why it is the way it is, and then we can act on our own behalf to address the situation that is coming up, like based on what our intentions are, where we want to go in our lives, whatever occurs in our lives. If we have our system of value and our vision of where we're going, then if we're surrendered to any situation that arises, then we can find a way to be with it and to make it work, and to see, okay, well, maybe that was a detour. Let's say you're going on a hike somewhere and you miss the main road or the main path. And then there's another little path, and it just takes you around, and it takes you back to where you were, you wanted to go on the path that you were on. So it's really important to learn about that. So thank you so much, Ariane. That's really helpful. So just that simple exercise that I just had you do, which is to develop awareness of times in the past where you were able, like Ariane was able to, when she surrendered to a situation, it made it possible for her to face the challenge without getting dysregulated. So that's great information for Ariane and for others, that you may relate to your own, your own times when you've also been in situations where you actually did really well, given the challenge that was coming up. Or you did really well based on your conditioning, based on what was modeled by your parents or others that you were growing up around. So I'm trying to think if there's anything else, because I want to get into the practices that I want to share with you. If you have any other questions that are about the science of the window of tolerance, and which is your nervous, the optimal zone of your nervous system and your capacity, staying within that zone. If you have any other questions, I'm happy to address them. And if not, we're going to go in a moment into the practices that I've planned for us. So I'm just going to catch up also with the chat. Karen was saying earlier on that as the oldest child, she also felt and still feel that pressure. I try to set boundaries in my familial relationship, and I feel unappreciated and disrespected. Yeah, so Karen, it takes time when we have been the one who has been under that pressure, and then that pressure still exists, because when our siblings, if they're used to things being a certain way, they're going to want things to remain the same, especially if it benefits them. Not on purpose. It's a very subconscious dynamic. It's something that we learn, right? So what I would say is, first of all, if you can release the expectation that they would be able to change, if they don't have the information and the understandings that they're doing that, it's going to be very hard for them to be any different than they are, because they don't even know really that they're doing that. So then if you can release the feeling of not feeling appreciated and disrespected, or turn towards that part, those parts, or that part that feels unappreciated and disrespected, and develop a relationship with that part. Like, why is it feeling that way? What is it fearing? What is it protecting in you? And then from that space of you being connected to your own values, and that you're important, and that your needs are important, and that, just like the metaphor of like on a plane, you don't, like if you're going to put the oxygen mask on a child, for instance, or someone who's sick, you have to first put it on yourself. Because if you try to help someone else when you are not resourced and you don't have the support that you need, then it's going to feel really draining and heavy and not helpful. So setting the boundaries comes from you being connected to your own value. If you value yourself and you know that you deserve to be loved and to be supported and to be appreciated, then you'll be able, and respected. If you do that for yourself, then other people will follow. They'll get it, because you won't do it with anger or frustration. You'll just do it out of authenticity, out of, loving yourself and caring for yourself. Yeah, Laurette is saying there's no space for me and I don't connect that I matter. So I hope, Laurette, what I just shared is helpful. Marie, I hope I say your name right, Marie, is saying, yes, I represent this dynamic, and currently my mother expects me to solve all the problems related to my brother who was born with cognitive disability. He is an adult now, but is declining more, requiring more assistance, and will need to be in supported housing. I am so sorry, Marie, that your brother has that disability, and that you feel the pressure from your mother to take care of him. I think it's really important, if you heard what I've just said, that you take care of yourself. And also, when someone has a disability, they need support. Of course, they need support from their family. That said, they also need support, from professionals who are really trained in dealing with all of the ways that the disability impacts that person, or can impact also their relationship. So I really hope that you find that kind of support. Okay, so we're going to go into some practices. So Laurette is saying, well, how can I change the sense of obligation, especially if it's for my well-being? So that's a practice. So obligation is not love, right? So if you turn towards, like, instead of feeling a sense of obligation, feeling a sense of love first for yourself. And if you have any obligation, it's to yourself, right? So if you turn it towards you, your obligation to you, your love of you, then from that, the rest will follow. And I know this is kind of, until you start to practice that, and I mean that like somatically practice that, not in your mind, like embody that. Embody what it's like to take care of yourself, to love yourself, to feel responsible for your well-being, for yourself, in a loving and gentle way. The more you practice that somatically, what that feels like in your body, the more it will become easier for you to then have a new way of seeing different situations that you're in. Okay, so we're going to start some practices. Thank you, Laurette, for the donation, and anyone else who can donate, who feels comfortable and has the capacity. If it's helping you, I appreciate your donations. Okay, so let's go into the first practice. So our first practice is going to be a blend of like going inside, and also if you have something that you can write notes on, it's going to be important because you want to learn what your own signature of dysregulation looks like. It's great to know that we get dysregulated. That said, if we don't go into specifics as to, well, what is that, right? Like, what is my dysregulation like? Nobody's dysregulation is the same. So the way that somatically your nervous system plays out your dysregulation is unique to you. And the more you get familiar with it and you learn, oh, that's dysregulation in my nervous system, the more, again, you're going to start to be present when you get to the edge, one way or the other, down or up, of your window of tolerance. So let's take a moment and again, feel yourself sitting wherever you're sitting. And feel the support, a sense of being supported. So that you have enough space and capacity to come inside. Right? If we're not supported, we might be in many different places, not able to be in our bodies because we don't have enough support, enough resourcing. So that, by the way, that's a great resource for everyone here on this call who gets overwhelmed. When you feel overwhelmed, sit down, feel your feet on the ground, feel your sit bones in your chair, feel the weight dropping, feel your shoulders dropping, let yourself be supported. You're resourcing yourself. So right now, as you do this, now start to scan your body. And if you're slightly dysregulated now, start to scan where you are feeling dysregulated. And if you're not dysregulated right now, if you're finding yourself to be quite calm and grounded and centered, tune very gently, right? Not going fully into a moment of high dysregulation, just like at the edge, like in a moment where you felt a little bit dysregulated, a little bit outside of your window of tolerance. And just sense, where is that? So for instance, for me, it's my solar plexus and the back of my sacrum. I feel, whenever I get dysregulated, I feel a lot. Where in the body is there dysregulation? Nancy, I don't know if what I just said helps. It's like maybe you feel butterflies in your, I was about to add to that. So you feel butterfly in your solar plexus or in your belly, or you feel your legs jittery or shaky, or the feet, your toes are up and they're not on the floor, or you're bracing, your shoulders are up and you're bracing for, whatever is happening in this moment. Your neck is tight. So those are some of the things. I was also mentioning the back of the sacrum. For me, I feel like so much energy and sensations when I get dysregulated in the back of my sacrum. So just notice, sensations, maybe tightness, heaviness, maybe you're feeling numb somewhere. And just find how dysregulation expresses itself in your body. And then, without trying to change it, name it. And remember the language that I shared earlier on, something in me. So instead of saying like, oh, I'm really jittery, or my solar plexus is really shaking or feeling really agitated, you're going to say something in me is feeling XYZ in that area. So something in my solar plexus feels really unsettled. And then you can say it's like it's vibrating really fast. So now you're turning towards it. You're naming it, you're describing it, you're engaging your prefrontal cortex instead of being in the amygdala that's like, something is really bad here. I don't want this, this bad thing to happen. So then it's telling your body, hey, we gotta either fight this something or flee. Feeling flushed, or is that already dysregulated? Michael, I would think flushed is a sign of dysregulation. If I understand flush correctly. English is not my first language, so if I understand flush correctly, yes, it means there's dysregulation. So then pay attention to where it is, and you can say something in me or something in wherever it is, right? Something at the back of my sacrum is feeling, like I was saying, like jittery. So for you, Michael, something in is feeling flushed. And then you turn towards it. Okay. What is that like? So then, if you're hyperaroused right now or hypoaroused, can you name that? And can you put that in the chat? Are you feeling, when you tune into this sense of being dysregulated, do you go into hyperarousal or do you go straight into hypoarousal? Which one is it for you? So that's going to be important too, because that's helping you develop nuance about your nervous system and what its default is. Does it go into, like someone earlier on was saying, they're in constant fight or flight? Does it go into fight or flight? So Michael is saying hyperarousal for him, afraid, stressed. So naming that, Michael, is really important. Something in me is feeling afraid. Does that soften the arousal? Something in me is feeling stressed. Does that reduce the stress? If you can let me know, that would be very helpful, because that language usually helps. Something. So Sarah is saying she's also in hyperarousal. Michael is saying trapped, hyperarousal. So it makes sense that for most people here, it would be hyperarousal, because we're on a live that talks about overwhelm, right? We're not talking about shutdown, even though I think I also said shutdown in the title. But for most people, it's hyperarousal. We get to hypoarousal when we've been hyperaroused for quite a while, and then our system says, no, this is too costly. It's taking up too much energy and resources, so we're just going to shut down, like the turtle that goes into its shell. Hard to know what the first signs are. I think I'm not even aware I'm there. Yeah, of course, Ariane, that's dissociation. So when we get hyper aroused, it's both a sign of being potentially dissociated, and therefore, we're just taking on too many things, and then we check out. So it's like we're taking on too many things, we're dissociated, taking on too many things, and we're hyper aroused. And then it's like we're so hyper aroused and it's so uncomfortable, then we dissociate. I keep saying I can't do this. Okay, so Sarah, if you can say instead of I can't do this, something in me is saying I can't do this. Turn towards it. Right? Again, instead of being against the parts of us that go into hyperarousal, we must be willing to befriend them, to understand how they're protecting us. They have good intentions. All of our parts have good intentions. All of our parts want us to survive. So when we turn towards them, then they're like, oh, I'm not all alone freaking out about this thing. Someone else cares. Someone else is paying attention and is saying, hey, I want to help you because it's too much for you. And oftentimes the parts of us, by the way, that get hyperaroused, they're child parts. They're parts of us that were faced with certain things early on in life, and they were not able to. It's not something that they were, which I was mentioning earlier on, that they had enough resource or capacity for. So Karen is saying she got quite numb. Okay, so that's going into hypoarousal, the numbness, right? So when we can't fight or flee something, we are going to freeze, we're going to shut down, and then we're going to collapse. Or, being numb would be, part of the freeze response, numbing ourselves, dissociating, because it's too much. And the nervous system is very intelligent. It's like, hey, we're not going to survive this if we continue using all our resources, being in fight or flight, and there's no way that we can anyway manage this. It's gonna just completely overwhelm us and drain us. And so let's just, numb, let's dissociate, let's not be with this. It's too much. We can't do it. And then that conserves your resources. Michael, I hope that's helpful. Karen, Michael is saying initially was tightness, slower breathing. Understood. So again, being with that tightness. Isabel is saying that once she named it, it's getting softer. Then I become curious, I feel self-compassion, then tears arrive. Oh my goodness, that's so beautiful. So everyone, what Isabel just said is a process in itself. So if we name something, now we're turning towards it. We're becoming familiar with it, right? And we start to develop a relationship with that part of us. And it now knows that it has some support. Someone is there, right? In the past, a lot of times we got overwhelmed is because too much, too fast, too soon, and without support. Those are what takes us into overwhelm, by the way. Too much, too fast, too soon, without support. And so then we learn, I'm all alone with all these things and I can't deal with them. And then other things in life occur and we have that already, right? So Isabel said, first you name it. Okay, so you name what's happening, right? So now it's not in your subconscious. It's not like, I'm completely overwhelmed and freaking out. No, it's like you're naming it. And then when you're naming it using presence language, now you're also creating space between you and it. And so then it softens. It's like, I don't have to work so hard to keep the ship from sinking. Someone else is here. Someone else is paying attention. Then I become curious. So the next step that Isabel is talking about, it's like, well, when there's a softening, now your prefrontal cortex comes online and it's like, okay, what's going on? Let's check, okay, what is this threat? What is here? Then, of course, there's self-compassion because there's the understanding, no wonder I'm feeling this way. I'm projecting XYZ. I have this really difficult challenge in my life right now, right? A lot of you so vulnerably shared about your life situations. Those are really challenging things to be faced with. So then when we're not against and we're turning towards and we're becoming curious, we're starting to watch and to start to understand what's happening, self-compassion comes. No wonder you feel this way. Of course you would be overwhelmed, honey, right? Talking to yourself. Of course that would be so hard. And then tears. Tears is like, so this is one of the most beautiful thing I've ever learned from one of my favorite teacher in the world. He's not very well known, but he's an attachment theorist. But he is best friends with Gabor Mate, and he's a scholar and brilliant. Gordon Neufeld is his name. He's in Canada. And his body of work around attachment theory and how we attach is such that when we can't attach in relationship safely, then we try to avoid. But then we try to attach again because we're wired for connection. We are wired for attachment. For survival as mammals, we are wired to attach to another so that we can survive. And if that cannot happen, we become extremely frustrated, right? So we attack. So his theory is like there's attach. If you can't attach, actually you first attack. If you can attack, which is fight, right? You avoid, which is flight. And then you just stay stuck in that cycle because we are wired to attach. And so then once we, like Isabel is saying, the tears come. Why do the tears come? Because when we are in that cycle and we finally understand, I don't need to do this anymore, right? And we find secure relationships. And that here it's with ourselves, right? When we become curious and we turn towards ourselves, we're developing a relationship with ourselves. We're attaching in a secure way to ourselves. And then tears arrive, and in the brain, so that's Gordon Neufeld, there's the only time the brain doesn't have a way to feel. It only feels through the senses. So it gets information from the 5 senses and then it translates it. And every translation is different because we're all different. We've all have had different experiences. So the moment that the brain says, this is not working, when we cry, there's a chemical that gets released in the brain and the brain realizes this doesn't work. So this whole process that you gifted us with by writing it, Isabel, is beautiful because that's the completion. When the tears come, the brain realizes what I've been doing has not been working. And now we can do something new. Because the brain is not going to continue. Once it knows that something's not working, it's not going to continue to do it. It's just that it's really hard because the brain is working through the 5 senses, and our 5 senses are affected by, our own life experiences. And then it's not like a clean thing of like, oh, I can feel completely through my 5 senses exactly what's happening. So once the brain learns through the release of that chemical when we cry, then we have a new path forward. So Michael was saying naming it softens it, too much, too soon, too fast, without support. So too much, too soon, too fast, without support leads to overwhelm. Oh, Agota has already said too fast. Then I would allow myself to cry. That was not well seen in my childhood. I'm so sorry, Isabel, that in your childhood, you crying, which is actually really smart. Like crying is the way that we learn, as I was just mentioning. And also there's another thing, and I haven't told you. When the tear falls on our skin with the warmth of the tear and the feeling of it, that in itself is self-soothing. So crying is a beautiful thing. It's something that allows us to learn what doesn't work and to accept, and then to move on. Michael, you're so welcome. Okay, we're gonna go into the next practice. If you made a comment earlier on that I did not respond to, and it's important to you, just because it's just, there's a lot of comments now, if you wouldn't mind putting it back into the comment box, I would really appreciate it, because your comments and your questions are really important to me. I'm here for you. And this is, to help you. So please, if your needs are not being met today, I really want you to know, I would love to hear anything that you would like support with. Okay, so our second practice, we in the last live, I believe we did a little bit of titration, and pendulation is that. So it's like, how can we be with overwhelm while also being aware and present, such that the overwhelm reduces and we come back into our window of tolerance? So titration means little by little, we titrate, right? There's been many epigenetic studies on mice, unfortunately on mice, because their DNA is so close to ours. So that's, one way that we're able to map a lot of the patterns and understand, how things work. So in epigenetic, they have used titration to get a mice or mice exposed to something that is a stressor, but to learn to be with it such that they don't get dysregulated. So it's the same for us. To be able, yes, hyperarousal, too much, too fast, too soon, without support. That's also a definition of trauma, right? But trauma comes from being in a hyperarousal state and not being able to come back into regulation. So in this practice, titration means a little bit, right? We're not going to give too much to our system. So instead of getting into full-on overwhelm, we're like, okay, when we're a little bit on the edge, about to get overwhelmed, right? Bring that in, and then bring resources and awareness and go back and forth. We always start with the resource so that we already are bringing capacity. We're expanding our window of tolerance by bringing resource, and then we titrate a little bit. So I'd like you to think about something in the past that has taken you into a state of overwhelm, but not too much overwhelm. I mean, because there are degrees of overwhelm, right? There's like really completely overwhelmed, or like, I'm starting to feel overwhelmed here. Just like starting to feel overwhelmed. Like yeah, that's a lot. It's a little bit too much, too fast, too soon, right? And not enough support, not enough resources, like Michael was asking. So just think about that. And now think about something that helps you feel steady, strong, and we're going to go deeper into that in a moment too, in another practice. So something that helps you feel strong, steady, supported. And that's going to be a resource, right, as we pendulate, as we go back and forth. So again, feel yourself in your chair, sitting. Surrendering into the support of the chair or the ground, wherever you are. And now bring your resource. So something or a place inside your body that feels really strong, steady, calm, settled. We can usually always feel somewhere. For me, it's my quads. So my thighs are, for the most part, always calm, always steady, strong, carrying me. So for you, it can be completely different place. Just find your place of steadiness, of support inside of yourself. Or if you're not finding that, think about something that helps you feel like resourced and supported. Maybe it's like being on a beach in Hawaii, or I'm just choosing my my resources, or maybe it's just getting a massage or taking a bath, or going for a run, or doing being socially engaged with people that you trust and you feel comfortable with. So just bring that into your awareness and notice how your body feels when you bring that resource. And then now touch gently just on the edge of like times where you felt a little bit overwhelmed. And notice what happens in your body. Name it. Turn towards it for a moment. Maybe even ask it what it's trying to protect you from, what its intentions are for you, and then come back to your resource. So just spending a little bit of time touching the sense of overwhelm. Very little overwhelm, not going full on into overwhelm. And now, again, come back to being a resource wherever your happy place is, inside your body or outside your body, with someone, something that helps you feel strong, steady, calm, supported. And then again, pendulate back to tiny bit, a little dose of overwhelm. Something that takes you like, no, I can't do that. That's too much. That's too fast. I don't have the support. It's too soon. Just be with that for a moment. Notice what happens in your body, where you feel it, and then return to your resource again. So Michael is asking where in our body. So yes, if for instance you touch on a feeling, a sense of overwhelm, it's gonna play out somatically in your body in some way. Sometimes people feel butterflies here. By the way, tapping is really good also, because that brings your brain is now like, oh, we need to pay attention to what's going on here. And of course, you're also accessing certain meridians that help calm down what is being activated in that place. So when you are going back and forth like this, and you're titrating, you're doing small doses, and you're resourcing yourself, and then you're coming back and touching gently and turning towards the part that feels overwhelmed. You're now learning, you're teaching your system, your nervous system, that you can be with something that's difficult without completely tipping outside of your window of tolerance, without getting dysregulated, essentially. So you're learning what your capacity is to be with something that's difficult, or that has been difficult or challenging for you in the past. And what you're doing is you're learning how to build distress tolerance. And the best way to not go into overwhelm is to build distress tolerance. How can I be with something difficult and still stay calm and regulated? So that's what that does. That practice of pendulation, titration and pendulation, helps you to expand your capacity, to expand your resilience, to expand the possibility that you can be with something that's new and that's difficult, or something that's not new, that's difficult, or that has been difficult in the past, and you can stay present with yourself. You can stay, you don't have to check out, you don't have to go into fight or flight. You can just stay right here, right there, and then the prefrontal cortex comes online and says, okay, well, there is a challenge here. How do we address it? What do we do with this challenge? So does anyone have any question? Otherwise, I want to go into another practice, a short practice on language. So when you start to develop a language with your nervous system, you become familiar with how your nervous system speaks, right? It's going to be through words here that said the states of your nervous system is going to define the words that describe what you're feeling. When you start to have words for the states that you go in, it's going to really help you, because it's going to start to point towards what it is exactly that you're feeling. And when you know exactly what you're feeling, that in itself is regulating. So language is regulating also, because when we get dysregulated, it's the right side of our brain that takes over, the emotional side of our brain, that just starts to be, is processing emotions. And when you bring language, left side of the brain, now there's like communication between the two hemispheres, and you're able to, I don't know if you've heard of bilateral stimulation, if you were there in the last life, for instance, butterfly tapping is a way to do bilateral stimulation, the EMDR with the eyes. And why do we do that? So that we can integrate both parts of the brain, the emotional part and the rational part. So the language brings the rationality, and it grounds us. It helps us see, like, instead of being in the haze or the frenzy of the overwhelm, now we're using words to define what's happening inside of us. So let's do this. So the language is, so now you know that there's hyperarousal, hypoarousal, and then regulated, which is in the window of tolerance. So those are just like, just generic terms that said it's helpful. Oh, I'm hyperaroused right now. Instead of being in it and not even understanding what's going on because you're so enmeshed or merged with, the part and the emotion. Now, if you say, oh, I'm hyperaroused or I'm hypoaroused, it's way less triggering, and there's less emotional charge. So that in itself is going to regulate you. So what I'd like to hear from you is, when you are inside the window, what's one word that you can give yourself that helps you see, oh, I'm regulated? Like, not many people, some people actually don't even like the word regulated or self-regulation, because it feels like there's like a component of discipline and of structure and of control. And so if, as a child, there was a lot of rigidity in the parents, for instance, or control, sometimes self-regulation is a word that people don't like. So find your own word, and if you want to share it in the chat, you can. Like, okay, what is that word? When I'm regulated, what would I say I feel? So for instance, someone can say, oh, I feel calm. Not calm as shut down, like just calm. Yeah, present, beautiful. Aware, Karen, beautiful. Balanced, wonderful. Peaceful. At ease. Relief, beautiful. All of that is language of your nervous, you giving a language, words to express what's happening when you're in your window of tolerance. Grounded, beautiful. All of those words centered, yeah. So then, if we are thinking about hyperarousal, right? Like you're not going to meet many people unless they're in this field. I do, but because I'm in this field, who say, I love also Aligned from Isabel, who say, oh, I'm hyper aroused. I even did the eyes of the hyperarousal, right? I'm hyper aroused. So what's the language for you? For me, it's like, well, I do say I'm hyper aroused. I often say hyper vigilant also. Yes, intense. That's a great word, Michael. Feeling intense, fix it mode. Yeah, the fight or flight, fix it. You're fighting and fighting with yourself. Anxious, yes. Tense, hyper vigilant, Tom, yeah. Stressed. Yeah, so something, now we're going to add the language, right? The presence language. Something in me is feeling intense. Something in me is feeling anxious. Something in me is feeling tense. Something in me is feeling stressed. Something in me is feeling hypervigilant. Just that calms your nervous system down. It sometimes it's going to take pendulation, titration and pendulation to get back there, practicing that daily like we were talking about earlier on, so that the neural pathways already exist. Thank you, by the way, for all the gratitude and all the hearts. I see them, and it really it helps me connect to you, even though I'm not able to see you. So thank you for that, and thank you for being so participative in the chat. I really appreciate it. So when we start to name things in this way, we're no longer, lost in it. We're now aware. Oh my God, the gratitude just like went twice. I'm getting overwhelmed. So using the words, you're going to see that you start to be like, oh, that's what's going on. Something in me is feeling that. And then you turn towards it. And soon enough, you give that part what it needs to feel safe. And soon enough, you're back within your window of tolerance instead of feeling overwhelmed. So how about hypoaroused? Not many people, I don't actually. Hyperaroused, I do say that. I'm hyperaroused, or I'm hyper vigilant right now, or I'm hyper excited, agitated. I'm agitated. What about below, right? When we go below our window of tolerance, when we go into hyperarousal. I personally, I often say like sometimes I freeze, so I'm neurodivergent and I feel a lot. And sometimes when it's too much, too soon, too fast, I'm like, oh, I'm just gonna freeze. So sometimes I say freeze or shut down. Michael said withdrawn, absolutely done, absolutely depleted, stuck, yes. It can feel like we're stuck in the mud, like I'm just there and I just can't do anything. Numb, nonchalant, excellent, yeah. I don't care, absolutely. Isabel, I love that also. I mean, I love everyone's share. The I don't care, when we get to that place, when the nervous system is like, I'm done, like I don't have a way, then we can go into like, I don't care, because there's no energy for anything. Heavy, high anxiety for Brooke. Okay, so high anxiety, Brooke, it's hyperarousal. Hyperarousal, it's usually just like you're just more what everyone has shared, like down, withdrawn, stuck, numb, nonchalant, I don't care, heavy, avoidant. So high anxiety, Brooke, then you free. So perfect. So I don't know if you were there when I was explaining earlier on. So when we get to a high state of anxiety above our window of tolerance, for those of you who did not see my beautiful window of tolerance. So when you get to this place and the nervous system crashes, it's like, nope, thank you, Michael. Yes, sorry, I'm way over time. I hope it's okay for everyone else. Please feel free to leave. And and I'm sorry that it took me much longer than expected, but I really wanted to answer all your questions. So Michael, it was a pleasure to have you here with us. So Brooke, when you get to this place, it's like, nope, no, we can't continue. It's almost like if you drove your car, if you had even an electric car, you drove your car really fast for really long, and then it would run out of gas or it would run out of battery, and then it would be like shut down, right? So the freeze is like, it's like, nope, we need to just stop and conserve energy here because it's been too much anxiety for too long. Okay, hope that helps, Brooke. Okay, so I'm now going to, so I invite you to really start developing, as you are developing this language, right? Start tracking throughout the day where you are, because it's going to help you to develop that sensitivity to the early signs that, oh, I'm about to go into overwhelm, or I'm about to freeze and shut down. I know the signs. I've seen it before. So use the language, track it throughout the day, so that then once you start doing that, you'll learn right before it starts, happening, that I'm about to go into dysregulation. I'm about to, be hyper aroused, and I'm just going to go and take a bath, or I'm just going to go and sit here and just, be zen, do my meditation, and just, be with myself and resource myself. I'm going to let myself sit in my chair or on the ground and feel supported. All right? So all of that is going to help you do that. So, because for the sake of time, I'm not going to do the attune resourcing that I had planned, but I'm going to tell you a little bit about it so that you can practice it. And who knows, maybe I will do a meditation. I will create a meditation for that. So Peace said also, this topic is so perfect for me to hear today. Wonderful. I'm so happy. And I'm just like overwhelmed with the love and the gratitude coming in. 1,236. You guys are amazing. Thank you. Guys and gals. Okay, so attune resourcing is what we did with titration and pendulation, but it's specific to you. So if you journal on this, the gratitude hearts are just going nuts. So think about a place, a person, a quality, a sensation in your body that feels good, or a moment that feels resourcing. Thank you, Angela. I feel that. I feel the love. I feel all your love. Thank you. Really appreciate it. So think about that. And that is something that if you know what your resource is, if you thought about it, and if you felt into how it feels like in your body when you are tuning, tapping into that resource, it's going to be right there when you start to get outside of your window, about to get outside of your window of tolerance. You're going to be like, oh, I know. So for me, it's like I take a walk in nature, or I connect to animals. I look around to the beautiful. I'm looking around there like it's the garden with the beautiful fountain and the trees and the bushes, and there's like lots of birds. So that helps me feel resourced. And then, of course, just tuning into my love for Dexter and our relationship. And that also just like it nourishes me. So whatever it is for you, you want to find out, be specific for you. What is it that nourishes you? What is it that supports you? Remember earlier on we said too much, too fast, too soon without support. If too much, too fast, too soon has support, you might still be able to be in your window of tolerance. Right? So think about it deeply, because this will help you so much when you know what for you is going to support you and help you feel resourced. Now you have something that you can use over and over again. And the moment that you start to feel like you're getting, outside of your window of tolerance, you can bring that in. Okay, so actually that's great, because we're gonna fold that resource that is for you. By the way, you can share your resource. I just shared mine. If you want to share yours, another one of mine is Bora Bora. Not because I'm picky and I want to be, in the most beautiful place on earth that happens to also be an expensive place to be on earth, but because I value pristine beauty. Now, there's also New Zealand. New Zealand is an incredible country. So I personally love places that are isolated. Thank you, Sarah. Thank you. I hope your work is peaceful and joyful and resourcing. So thank you for being with us. So for me, I love these places that are pristine, beautiful, that have all these beautiful colors that, just help me to feel like I'm regulated and I am nurtured and resourced. So for you, whatever that is, if you want to share it in the comments, that would be wonderful. And if not, that's okay too. Whatever works for you. And we're going to go into the last practice. The sea, beautiful, Ariane. Same with me. We lived in Miami. Well, I lived in Miami. And Dexter lived in Miami too. We lived in Miami together too. That said, I lived in Miami for about 22 years. And I love the beautiful turquoise ocean. So the sea is very soothing. It also has, all the ions, the negative ions that basically help us to process the inflammation in our body. The positive, charge in our body gets released. Agota is saying, being in nature, hummingbirds. I love hummingbirds. We have so many hummingbirds here in Sedona. By the way, I don't know if you all know that I do private retreats with Insight Timer in Sedona. So if that's something that is accessible to you and affordable, I give 20% off if you purchase the retreat. I think it's 2 weeks in advance. And it's a whole day with me in Sedona, where we do nervous system regulation and we map your system. So if that's ever something that you can do and want to do, I'm here. It's not the ocean, but it's also the beautiful red rocks, and the energy of Sedona is incredible. Okay, let's do the last one, which is you building your own protocol. So a lot of what we did already. When do you come to Europe, Isabel? I'm French American, but I do come to France once in a while. I've been to England. I've been all over Europe when I lived there. That said, I would love to come to Europe. So who knows, maybe a retreat there soon. I have a lot of people in Sweden that follow my work, and in the UK. So maybe it's time to do a group retreat. Karen, I haven't done retreats yet, other than in Sedona and in Miami. That said, I'm definitely opening myself up for that either this year or next year. So maybe in the summer, who knows? And if you have any ideas, you can always contact me on that too. Okay, so your personal protocol. So when we start to recognize the first sign, so there's 3 steps. The first step, which we've already been doing, is like how do I know that I'm starting to get into dysregulation? So if you want to share that in the chat, like what's a sign that tells you you're getting dysregulated? For me, again, it's my solar plexus. I start to feel unsettled there. I'm like, oh, I'm getting nervous. Okay, something's happening in there. And then I turn towards it. I sit, I breathe, I settle, I name it. And then if I need to resource myself, I also resource myself, or I do some, titration and pendulation with it. Usually the titration and pendulation is better outside of the time when we are getting dysregulated, because we're already, outside of our window of tolerance. So you want to practice that during times when you're regulated, or more so than, in the state of overwhelm. So what's the first sign for you that you're getting dysregulated, that you're starting to get activated? And then you want to be specific. Isabel is saying neck pains. That makes sense, because that's where we would, start to build tension, like we're tensing up. Okay, we need to be alert. And solar plexus tension, yeah, that makes total sense. So the second step, once you are mapping and you recognize the signs, so Agota is saying tension and too much energy in the head, yeah, that makes sense too. You might want to be specific, Agota, too, like where in the head? Like feel, like really tune into the place where, could it be your amygdala that's, getting activated because there's, fear in the system. There's something that you sense from the environment that led you to feel like, like I need to pay attention to this. Temples and back of the head, yes. Back of the head and neck is exactly where the pons, right? So the primitive brain is. And that also connects to the amygdala. So that's exactly, and by the way, so quick resourcing, you do this for 30 seconds. That brings energy to your prefrontal cortex, which can then start to make sense of what's happening and grounds you, helps you feel safer. And then you're also down regulating, you're calming down the back of the brain, the brainstem. That's one of my favorites. It's so simple and so accessible. Agota has been doing that. Great. By the way, this is really funny because, like when people do this, like people might do this or they might do that, they're self-regulating without even knowing it. It's like they know, the system already knows what it needs, and it's already, taking us into the somatic action that we need. So that takes us into the second thing. Interrupt one somatic action in that moment. So we're right there, like the cues of dysregulation are coming up. We're going to interrupt. We're going to do something that resources us, right? So, okay, I just showed you this, right? Feet on the ground. Your feet on the ground, or I have my ball, my physio ball. Let me show it to you. So simple. And that, maybe you need to release some of the energy. Maybe there's too much activation in the system, the nervous system, just like, the animals, when they run away from danger, the moment that they can stop, there's no longer a threat, they know, they shake, right? They shake off the act because there was so much adrenaline released in the system, so much cortisol, so much energy in the nervous system to run away. It needs to be discharged. So a lot of also overwhelm comes from too much energy not being discharged. So This is one way. I'm going to show you another way that I do Feldenkrais therapy, which rewires your brain. And my Feldenkrais therapist showed me a process that's super simple. So you do this at the speed that is right for you in that moment. So if you're super activated, maybe you do this. You go really fast. I hope I'm not making you nauseous. If you're not too activated, you just go and build. And now you're discharging the energy, you're releasing, all this activation. You're also lengthening your spine, and then you have this it feels so good it's almost like a weightlessness, it's almost like when people float in the water, there's a weightlessness to that. So I just wanted to bring that playfulness into my day and a little bit of movement because I've been sitting for a while. So, Agota says she has a ball and the biofield tuning forks. Yes, I have those forks too, and I do that. I do that on my solar plexus, by the way. I take the fork, I tune in both ears, I listen, and then I put the back of the fork right here. And I just let it clear things up. Floating on water, beautiful. Moving the body in any way work as an interrupt. Yes, Ariane, absolutely. So the interruption is like, instead of continuing down the rabbit hole of whatever, triggered us, we're now giving the body what it needs to be resourced, whether that's a discharge or whether that's a nap, whatever it is that you need, right? We're going to interrupt the pattern. Cold water on the face, breathing work will do that. By the way, cold water on the face is or on the back of your neck. If you are okay with that, if it's not overwhelming to you, it could be overwhelming in some ways, but it's going to take you out of overwhelm at the same time. So for some people, they don't like cold water. So I'm just saying that ooh sound is perfect. So you splash, cold water on your face, or you put your face in cold water, the prefrontal cortex, or, an ice pack in the back of the brain stem. That's all a signal to the nervous system to also downregulate and to calm down. So those are all ways to interrupt. And then the next thing is you bring your resource. So that's your protocol. Your protocol is you learn your early sign of dysregulation when you're about to tip outside of your window of tolerance into overwhelm. Then you interrupt, right? You do something that the body needs to do in that moment. You give the body what it needs in that moment. And then you resource yourself. And once you have that, then you're never going to be unaware. I'm not saying you're never going to get overwhelmed. I'm just going to say that you're going to start to build a lot of awareness of your own patterns of dysregulation and overwhelm. And you'll be able to catch it sooner, faster, and also you'll be able to then know what to do. Like, what does my body need right now? And if you listen to your body, if you turn towards the pattern that's feeling overwhelmed, you name it, you develop a relationship with it, you ask it what it needs, you give it what it needs, then you're going to find that you're going to return within your window of tolerance. And if that's not enough, then you bring the resource, right? The thing that we discussed earlier on that is specific to you, that helps you to stay within your window of tolerance and regulated. All right. An hour and 45 minutes. I'm so sorry. Well, 47 minutes. I hope you all enjoyed. Is there anything else that you'd like me to answer right now? I'm seeing all the love. Thank you so much. And I also saw the comment from Karen. I love cold water on the face in the morning. Wonderful, me too. And just to add one more thing that Agota said, what was the first movement? I was a little away, sorry. So just to go to that for a moment, the first movement was jumping on the physio ball, right? And then the arms start to follow. So there's like, you know, a freedom, like the body returns to its light state and free state. And the VU sound, by the woo sound or VU sound from Agota, that's a great one too, because when you say woo or woo, you're gonna feel the vibration, so it's gonna vibrate your vagus nerve, and usually, well, not usually, when we're overwhelmed, we're in sympathetic activation. So when we stimulate the vagus nerve, then it's going to help us rebalance our autonomic nervous system towards being in parasympathetic functioning. Nat, thank you so much for your donation. If anyone else can donate, of course, I appreciate your donations. That allows me to spend more time doing these lives and preparing for them. Brooke, you're so welcome. I'm so glad it's what you needed. And slow push away with my arms and hands. Agota, wonderful. Yes, that's boundary setting. That's us saying, hey, I need the space, right? So we push away. And by the way, that when one of the things that's super regulating too is to do a push-up, like against, you know, like a table, for instance, or a kitchen counter. And when we do that, it gives, you know, like a sense of strength. And if we're overwhelmed, it might be that we don't feel like we have strength, right? So when we do that, it reminds us, no, I have strength, I am strong, you know, and it also releases excess activation. Okay, let me read. I mean, the movement before the jumping on the ball. Can anyone remember what I said before the jumping on the ball? I guess the jumping on the ball got me excited. I don't remember what I said before. What did I say before? I don't remember. Sorry, Fabiola. If someone remembers what I said before jumping on the ball, please share with Fabiola. The VU the VU sound is amazing. That's Peter Levine's work. It's so incredible because it also vibrates here, and your vagus nerve, 80% of your vagus nerve is in your gut, which is why when we're stressed, oftentimes that's where we feel it, or that's where we get dysfunction in the gut. So the VU sound helps with that. Kathy, you're so welcome. Somaya or Somia, hello. Peace, you're so welcome. Ariane, you're so welcome. Agota, you're so welcome. Thank you so much for all of that. The hold on the forehead and back. Yes, that's the one. So it wasn't a movement. That's why I was confused. Sorry. That's Agota. Thank you so much for that. How about animals? Please, Brooke, what do you mean? Tell me. Yeah, Nicole, it was that. What's good for sciatica pain? Well, that's so interesting that you're asking that. I would say the more you build your core and you sit back and you really, you know, allow yourself to be supported, I know that helps. And then Feldenkrais therapy, by the way, Samia, and pelvic tilts are super helpful. So it's like you're laying on a pillow right underneath your back. I don't have the pillow here, but right at the curvature, you lay on a pillow and you do pelvic tilt. So pelvic tilt is the forward and back. So lengthening the spine and then the other way. So it's like the tail of your tailbone is like it's tilting forward and tilting back, and that really helps over time when you do this practice. Oh, yes, yes, Brooke, excellent what you said. Gros bisous, Isabelle. um, yeah, the shaking, exactly. The ball is also shaking it off, but we can also do shaking, like skeletal shaking, just shaking like that, shaking your arms, or if you do Kundalini yoga, just like the shaking that they do in Kundalini yoga. Okay. Okay, everyone, thank you so much. I'm so grateful. And thank you for your donation, Ariane. Thank you, everyone, for being here. And I look forward to seeing you next month. I can't remember what the topic is for next month because I prepared all the topics for the whole year. So that said, if there's a topic also that you're interested in, always feel free to send me a message through the platform or through my website. Sending you all so much love. Thank you so much. Bye, everyone. You're so welcome, Karen.